is Lee Smith for 3 Shades of Blue, your Grizzlies fan blog. Well, if you don't make it to the games, there's a good chance you're watching the Grizzlies on TV. And if you're a fan like I am, that means you're watching the pregame show, which is shot right here from the lobby of FedEx Forum. Seemed like a perfect place to tell you about our exclusive interview with Grizzlies TV announcer Pete Pranica. Our very own Chip Crane got the chance to sit down and talk with Pete to get his thoughts on how he started in his career, what his thoughts are on the Grizzlies season, and what the team can do moving forward. Here's part 1 of 3SOB.com's exclusive interview with Pete Pranica. Check it out.
All right, Pete, thank you for joining us. And could you tell me first, how did you get into broadcasting in the NBA?
It's a long story. Actually, Chip, my high school had a radio station. And so when I was 16 years old already, I was doing football and basketball play-by-play. Went to Notre Dame, did student radio there. To make a long story bearably short, George Blaha, who has been the voice of the Detroit Pistons since the mid-'70s, also Notre Dame grad. I sent him a tape. He gave it to his boss. I filled in on Piston games between 90 and 96. The guy who hired me to do the Pistons took a job with the Portland Trail Blazers, hired me out there. I did 4 years of TV, and then ended up here in Memphis. So it's been a long time behind the microphone, and some good breaks along the way, and just good networking, I guess.
You and I talked last summer, and that was at the beginning of the lockout, and it was difficult for everybody. But how particularly difficult was for you in your situation?
It was very difficult because when you're only paid if there are games played, and you're looking at the possibility of no games being played and therefore no income, it scares you quite a bit. And all of us knew that the lockout was a possibility. You try to prepare financially as much as you possibly can, but I don't think anybody, whether you're a broadcaster or a PR person for the club or a player, I don't know that anybody really can survive a year without income. So, thankfully cooler heads prevailed, and we had a season, truncated though it was.
What's more difficult to broadcast, a blowout win or a blowout loss?
Probably a blowout loss, because you don't want to belabor the point why you're down 20 points. If you're up 20 or 30 points, it's easy to talk about the positive things, and you can tell stories, and you're going to have a very receptive audience. When you have a 20-point deficit, it's hard to keep the audience engaged, because a lot of them probably are going to say, well, ball game's over, I'm going to turn it off. So the 20-point blowout, and thankfully we didn't have very many of those outside of New Year's Day, really, in Chicago to deal with.
Outside of Grizzlies players, who's your favorite player to watch when you're broadcasting?
Steve Nash. I mean, he is so good. He is so heady. He's also a classy guy and a great interview. But he just manages to make everybody better. As you go through and you read the game notes from year to year to year, you see all the players that have come through Phoenix that may have been marginal to good players, they become good to great players when they're playing with Steve Nash. And the fact that he can make so many guys so much better speaks volumes, and he's just fun to watch.
You've had quite a few partners here at the Grizzlies. Who's been your favorite play-by-play guy, or color while you're doing play-by-play?
Can I answer this, that they're all like children, you love them all in different ways?
You can, I won't accept it.
Sean and I have been friends really since day one, and I certainly enjoy working with Brevin Knight. Michael Cage was a lot of fun. He was new to the business. Sean and I were two of the people who were there when Don died in Denver, and we did the game on radio that night, and the pregame show was a half-hour tribute to Don. It was the hardest night of my life to not only endure the loss of a good friend, but then to have to speak publicly and to do a basketball game, which was the last thing on anybody's mind. And I think the fact that Sean and I went through that experience together, I think it brought us closer together as friends. And to this day, if he's out on the road, the rare occasions that he does go out on a road trip, we'll have lunch together and we'll talk. And I was kind of an outlet for him when the book was being written and the movie was being made, and we talk about that. And so I mean, we're very good friends off the court, which is not to say that Brevin and I aren't, and Michael and I weren't. But I think there's a special bond between Sean and I because of what we went through with Don and that whole circumstance, which was just one of the worst times of my life.
All right, getting back to what everybody really wants to hear. What were your thoughts of the Grizzlies season?
I think Lionel had it exactly right. It was a great season with a bad end. You look at this season and you go into training camp and everybody is remarking about how this is a team where everybody's coming back. Then Darrell Arthur goes down. Then New Year's Day, Zach Randolph goes down. And now you're really having to backfill with other pieces. And Quincy Pondexter comes in. Maurice Spates comes in. And when Zach goes down on January the 1st, you're looking around and like, okay, what's the season going to become now? Where are we going to turn? How is this going to turn out? And it was a team that really focused on what they needed to do. I think it was a brilliant job by the coaching staff to keep this team on task and to, I don't want to say reinvent, but tweak the style of play and tweak their offense really on the fly. All the while, Dave Yeager's defensive coordination really took this team to another level as far as their defensive ability. So, like any season, there are story arcs. There are times when you win 7 in a row and you feel like you're never going to lose again. And then there are times when you go out on the road and you play a Saturday afternoon game against the Clippers and you get your head handed to you and you think you're never going to win again. And then you come back 24 hours later and you beat the Lakers. It just, wild season again with not a very satisfying end.
Check back for more of our exclusive interview with Pete Pranica on 3SOB.com.